Alright, so I'm going to just show you how I'm going to unsolder this Casio pin to put a QS8 connector pin on. One of the issues I was having with these pins is just not fully seated into a QS8 connector if you're going to be running them into QS8 connector. As you can see, I got this QS8 jumper already made. This goes all the way in. This is a Casio 8mm bullet compared to a QS8. So this is a mating surface that's going into the QS8. So you can see it's probably about 2 millimeters shorter. So what I'm going to do today is just unsolder this to put a QS8 connector on. And if you don't know how to take this apart already, this is how the QS8 connector starts with the metal bullets. You're going to have to either cut this away or hammer this out. What I normally do is cut it away, and then I cut a slot right here, a slot right here. Then you can take some pliers, pull this pin out, and then that's going to expose the QS8 connector. And then there you go, got the QS8 bullet. Do the same thing on this side. And on this QS8 connector, it's just a pin or like a slot with this red that's filled. That's keeping this connector to the bullet. So as you can see, that's all that's locking that in. On the male side, it does have a 5.0 or 5.1 ohm resistor, so when you plug this in, it doesn't spark. That's why they're called anti-spark connector. I'll go over that in another video. Just this video, I'm going to show you just how to disconnect, take off a bad connector, and put a new connector on. So let me just heat this bullet up nice and hot to try to get the solder melted. And then a good rule of thumb, if you're going to pretty much try to desolder something, sometimes it's good to add solder back to what you're working on. And in that case, it's going to pretty much get that solder to melt. So let's do that here. And as you can see, I got that connector off. Clean my tip. And then next what we're going to do is get the QS8 connector ready. What I normally like to do is preheat this as well, get that solder flowing. So this wire is already pre-tinned since we just desoldered it. Now that that's cooled down, I'm gonna just take this wire, re-angle it, and add some more solder. So it's pretty much done on that. Got the solder wicked in there. The wire is pretty much cooling off. In the meantime, you do got to be careful. This is going to be pretty hot. So let's get this out the way. And right here I got 10 mil heat shrink. Depending on what size you're working with, you want to go a little bit bigger. This is a 3-to-1 heat shrink, so 10 millimeters is pretty much 2 millimeters bigger than our connector, and don't want to go too big. Alright, so as you can see, this wire connector, it's pretty good. It's still a little hot, so you do got to be careful when working on stuff that's hot. So next I'll show you how to heat the shrink, or put the heat shrink on and go from there. So one thing to keep in mind if you're going to be cutting heat shrink is you do want to squeeze it out so that it's nice and straight, so when you go to make your cut, you get an even line. So as you can see right here, it's a little bit off. So if you wanted to get it perfect, squeeze it, get the flat surface since you're trying to cut a circle, and then you'll be good. Slide it over this QS8 connector. One thing you got to keep in mind is on this connector is where it's going to go into the housing. So on the male side of that connector to female side, it is going to be different. So if we wanted to plug this in to our female side with our positive, on the connector I'll have a red stripe inside. I would press that in. As you can see, that's how much of the connector's inside. So you do want to apply the heat shrink right about to that housing. I'm gonna just take a basic lighter. Don't want to go too hot. To get that started, slide that over. And there you have it, QS8 connector on the Castle XLX2. So as you can tell, this wire is now bigger versus the Castle 8mm bullet. And I'll go over soldering on another video, but pretty much when you get an XLX2 from the factory, this is how it is. You do have to solder whatever connector you want on. Castle does recommend QS8s on their ESCs due to the amps that you'll be pulling. This ESC is pretty strong, so you don't want to have a little small connector on it and not get enough power. What happens is with electronics is if you're not getting enough power, things start to go wrong. So you do want to use appropriate connectors. I do have this setup that is going to be built later on that I'll go over how to solder this in another video. Today I just want to show you a brief setup on how to put QS8 connectors on a ESC and then go from there. So as you can tell, it's not that bad. Just due to the depth of how far this connector goes into, it is ideal to run QS8 connectors if you're going to be running this setup with QS8 connectors, and you're not going to be running a QS8 connector on here. It's just to TD up the space and then go from there. So do whatever you want, have fun, like, subscribe, share, enjoy your day.